Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of TRCOA's Behind the Groove. If you're here live, please introduce yourself and ask questions in the chat as we go along. This episode is sponsored by Stinson Recording Studios. Also, if you find this content useful, please like this video, and if you are new, please subscribe to our channel. We make new content every week. Today we are proud to have Ben Kliever. He's going to do a tutorial on using groups and clips in Pro Tools. Ben is the owner of Nebula 88 Studios and one of TRCOA's beginning recording techniques instructors. Without further ado, Ben Kliever.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TRCOA's Behind the Groove seminar. I'm Ben Kliever and I will be leading the lesson tonight. Tonight we are going to be talking about groups and clips within Pro Tools. So we're really going to start with the groups and then we'll move on to clips. This is just really the main thing that this is going to really help with everyone tonight is this is going to help your navigation and control of your sessions, of your mixing, and just give you more control of everything that's going on here with all your tracks and sends and inserts so that you're able to do anything that you want with that. So hopefully on that front, for everyone that's watching this will be able to get you a little more control and get to some places or do some things a little bit quicker from using these tips. Hey there, Michaela, welcome. Glad you're in here tonight. So first thing we're going to talk about is groups. So groups is a function that allows you to be able to control multiple tracks at once, so at least some parameter of it. And we're going to get into why you can do more than that, but that's what a group is. It's something that is connected to at least more than one track, and then they are synced together to at least control one parameter in there. Hey there, Corey, welcome. How are you doing, man? That's what we're going to start with on that, is on groups and really diving into that. So that's kind of just the overview of what they are. Now, why are we going to use groups is kind of the next thing. It's for more control, for me to be able, because I can control multiple tracks, I can control multiple plugins, I can control multiple sends, I can control multiple inserts, I can control the volumes, I can control the pans, I can control every single one of these controls if I want to record, input, monitoring, solo, mute, any of those things. So like whenever you have groups on, you can control much more functions as they go. Yes, please feel free to ask questions or just comment on stuff as we go along, or just anything you notice, just feel free to ring it out in there. Hey there, Harry, welcome. So that is the reason why we would use groups, and so we have control of all those. So we're going to go into actually taking a look at how we create groups, and then we'll look at them in action. So I have some sections down here of this track where I'd have the guitars. This is just a track that I did with one of my friends. It's not really any of my other specific projects. It's kind of like a cinematic thing that we kind of do that's just kind of textures and stuff going on in there. So we'll kind of listen to it more a little bit later. That's just kind of a little here of what this is. So that's just kind of the track we're working with. Mostly everything we're going to be dealing with here is going to be more just looking and showing how these controls work. So we're going to start by actually creating a group and then taking a look at where we can look at everything that is connected with groups and everything we can do with that. So first thing I just kind of want to look at the sections. So like the first thing is, how do we even create a group? So the first thing to do to create a group is you have to select the tracks, which you can tell when track's selected. When it's highlighted, you have to select the tracks that you want to be within a group. So you can command click to add more or take one away, or you can hold shift and it'll automatically grab everything that's in between those tracks. So you can see I'm holding shift and it just does anything that's in between those. I can still command click and turn off individual ones if I want though. So ways we can make a group. So to manually make a group, you can come over to the actual groups section over here. For some of you, if you don't see this section, it's hidden by this little arrow down here. So if you press it to the right, it opens up that section. For some reason you didn't want to see it, you can always press the arrow and it'll hide it. So I want you to be aware of that. There's another on this side, but this is actually heat on that side, so in this window, but we want to have the groups window showing. So to manually do this, you can come over here to the group. There's a little drop down arrow here, and we can just select new group, and that will do that. Or we can use the hotkey that's right next to it, which is Command G, which is definitely the fastest way to do this. If I just hold Command G on my keyboard down here, then it's going to pop up my Create Group window, which this is our group window, and this is our groups section down here. So looking at the group window, we're going to look at this first so you at least know what everything is on here, and then we'll actually show it in action here in a moment, and I'll actually show you how I would use the groups in a section. But first I want you to actually know what you're looking at. So the first thing, no matter what, when you come up here, is you look at this top section, is we have the name. That's what's going to name of this group. You can already see I have a bunch of other groups in here, and we'll really dive into this group section here in just a second after I explain this window. So up here, this is going to be what I'm going to be labeling this. So this is all my electric guitars I have over here. So I may call these guitars, GTRS. You can label it however you want to do that. You could do it EG, you could do EGs, you can call it whatever you want. But this is where you're going to see that name. This is what letter is going to correspond to that. It's automatically going to choose the letter, so you should never have to do that. VCA, we're going to talk about that in a moment, but a VCA is a voltage controlled amplifier, which all that means on this is it gives us a fader that controls the group if we decide we want to do that. And I'll show you how to use this here in a little bit later in this lesson. Then we have type, which is on the edit, mix, or mix and edit. Mix and edit's usually what you want it to be on, because then this, you could do mix or edit. So like technically you could go so specific that you could set up a group for each window, because if y'all don't know, this is the mix window. I'll open this group window again just here in a second. But you see this is the mix window. When I go to the other one, this is the edit window. So just keep that in mind. Now when I go back to my group here, mix and edit means the groups are going to be on both windows, which is what I would think you'd want to do unless there's some super specific reason that you're trying to do that. So again, I'm going to go ahead and label these guitars because that's what this is going to be covering. We have one other checkbox up here, which is follow globals, and we will talk about that in just one second because it's going to link to this globals tab. So let's look at our tabs first, and then we'll go from there. Hey there, Ariel, welcome. So this is the tracks tab. So there's three main tabs here. This is the tracks tab. This is going to show you, this left side available is going to show you every track that is in the session that is currently not in that group. And then what's over here is what's currently in what you're trying to add to this group or currently going to be in the group. So we haven't made the group yet, but I highlighted all four of these tracks, and now you see all of them over here. Let's say I accidentally add drum on here and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't want to add drum. You can see now that I can add and remove tracks. So I can click right back on this. Didn't mean for this to be in this group, let's say. Then I can just click remove and it moves it right back into the available section. So this is really straightforward. Just anytime you want to add one, you can go, you click on the track you want to add, click add, or if you want to remove something, click on it, click remove, that's gone. So this section is very simple. The track section is just choosing what tracks are available to you, every single thing that's in the session, and then over here is what's going to be in the group. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about attributes here in a second because we can talk about this a little more in advance after we talk about the globals, because attributes is just going to be where we can control groups exactly how we want them to. So let's go ahead and let's go to the globals section first because this is what a group defaults to. So this is how it defaults unless you want to change it. So when I have this globals checked here, that means, and this pops up when you create any group, it automatically checks globals. So globals is, you can think of globals as just a rule that is applying to every single group that has this check on it. So every group's going to follow these rules. So inside a group, this is going to be everything. And this is the exact same options we have inside the attributes. Attributes just only works for this. Like if I uncheck globals, then attributes will open up. And now I'm only controlling that specific group. When I have globals on, this is controlling any group that has globals checked, no matter what. So this is going to be controlling, this is for multiple groups. So usually with globals, you want them to be generic, like very, straight run-of-the-mill kind of groups when you're doing on, like controls when you're doing on globals, which on this, all I have them controlling is volume, mute, and then I have record, solos, automation, and input monitoring. So you can, so basically like what your basic, I'm gonna go ahead and click OK and create this group. And so now it shows up, creates the guitars group, puts the guitar group on here. So now what happens is anytime that I have control of this, like I said, it's just controlling volume and mute, so I can move any of these and they all move together. And then if I press mutes, they all mute together. I also had all these other ones checked, so all the solos, inputs, and records all control together in the globals. So I'm gonna reopen this group again. You can just right click on a group over here and just click modify if you wanna see it. And now I'm back into my group setting. I just wanted to come back here so y'all can see just what the overview of a group does at that point. So let's actually look at what controls we have inside a group here. So again, we have volume, we have mute. You can control pan if you want to, but now I'm gonna, if I did that, I might select that through the attributes, but this, no matter what, any pan moves you do will move all pan moves. And then we have our, I'll have to actually, LFE, I have to look exactly what LFE is, because that's something I haven't had to use before, and I'll have to check exactly what LFE is on that front. But on these, on that, that's your volume, mute, and pan is the main things you're looking at. Now over here we can control the inserts that are within a group. So let's say like this actually lets me control anything that's like, this is insert A, if y'all didn't know, like insert A through E you can see, and insert F through J. So this is controls of all those, of A through J. And then you have bypass A through J, which just controls anything that's in the group. If I turn that on, it will turn all of those off. And I'm gonna show all this here in action in just a moment. I just kind of want to talk about just the overview of what's going on here, and then we'll really dive in and show you how I would use it in a session for this type of scenario. You can also control heat down here too. You can actually save, attribute settings if you wanted to do this. So like if I come down here, turn this on, and I decided I wanted to check these three things, and that's all I checked, and then I wanted, or you have one over here and they have different settings that are in each one of these. You can click on one, and if I change what's good, like I could change it and then I'd press save and then you go back. But this is just some place that you can set different, like let's say if I just had this one control an A on 6 and I press save, or I can, you can press the location that you want that to be. So like if I press 6 here now, like if I went back from 1 or went back to 6, now, you can just save different attributes if that's something you want to do. Now again, if I turn globals on, again, then it makes attributes, because attributes only works for that group that you currently have open. So that's just the quick overview of what we're looking at here on globals. And again, I said we had the same thing on attributes. We will come back to that and talk about VCAs. So let me go ahead and click cancel on that, get back down here. Now we're going to talk about the groups section, and then we'll talk about just what you're seeing and everything. LFE is your sub in a surround mix. Oh, thanks, John. Now that would make sense why I haven't had to use that before, because everything I've done has always been stereo, so I haven't done any 5.1 or 7.1 mixing, so that would be why I haven't done any surround sound stuff. So thank you, John, for that tip. Okay, so now let's talk about our groups section over here. And then we'll look at kind of the groups that I'm choosing to do in a session as well, and then I'll go into how I make them work. So when we look at the groups section here, we see that anytime you have a group, when we create it, which this was the first one we created was guitars, you see that it creates a group down here. When it's on, it has this gray line over it. If it's off, which you can just click right on it, it will take the gray line off of it. So that's how you know if the group's on or off from the groups section. If you actually notice too, you can see there's this little R next to it as well. And the letter that corresponds next to the group name turns that off and on as well. But you have to have this little A to Z button turned on, which in the mix window here, I would definitely recommend having the A to Z on for your groups, because there's nothing really else for the A to Z to connect to on this window. When you're in the edit window, I highly recommend having your A to Z on your actual on the actual whole mix, the actual edit window setting, like the whole actual edit window. But you can see in this window too, you can come over here and choose to do A to Z on groups too, if you're doing some type of work where you're doing groups with editing from this end. And we'll look at that here in a second too. So again, back to this, we can just easily, once we're in this window with the A to Z on, I can press R and turn that group off and on over here. Now, another thing you're seeing is the little dots that are next to it. So like if I have the group off, then they have an open circle. Like that's what I'm selected on. If I press R and I have that, actually it's more if you have selected multiple of them. So if I have the whole group selected, it's dark. If I don't have the whole group selected and I'm just have part of the group selected, then it's going to show this little open circle here. So you see that. So if one's on, even if I don't have it selected, and now if I have the whole group selected, it's still putting a full dot over here, which means the whole group is then selected. And so that makes that part easy. And now, again, you can press R and it turns all that on though. Now, the next thing outside of just seeing this too, you also notice there is a corresponding color that is sitting next to this. So each group has its own color as well. And we can see where this actually corresponds on the actual track. If we look at our actual tracks over here, you can see my guitars group is on. It says guitars right there with the R next to it, and it actually has the green color that's next to it. If I press R and turn it off, it goes to no group, and now there's no color here, there's no letter. Now you can see. You can edit group by doing the whole dot too. You sure can, there you go. So you can just you can click right on the left there. Thanks for that, that's a nice little quick tip from John right there, that you can just press right on the side of a group and it will grab the entire group that's in that section. So that's a good tip right there. That's really easy and quick to do. Okay. So also, besides seeing the numbers and the letters over here, I'm going to make another group, a subgroup underneath this, which that's why you may see, like if someone grabs another group, you may see like multiple things open up and grab over here, which is just showing that it's in other groups, or you have a section of a group open. So I'm gonna turn this group off right quick, and then I'm gonna make a group just for these two guitars, because they're my rhythms. You can see like I have these two guitars together. So I have my left and right, you know, I have them synced together because it's a doubled track. So I'm going to grab both of these, I'm going to make another new group, and I'm just going to call this rhythms. And I'm going to press OK. I'm completely fine with the globals right now on that. So again, now it's made a new group down here. You see S next to it and rhythms. Now, this is a subgroup underneath a larger group. So if I turn on the large group, this is still a small one, but then I press R. You see on the two that have a subgroup under it, it changed that R to a capital R. So anytime you see a capital letter to the left of your group, thanks Corey. You know I have a lot of, I have very high sevenfold, lots of influence from sevenfold. So on this front here, but you can see like where if there's no subgroup, it's a small letter. If there is a subgroup under it, there's a capital letter. Because even in this group, these two over here still have a small letter because there's no subgroup with the fill or the sends going on in there. So I mean, yeah, I'm even doing a bunch of like harmonic kind of things too, where I'm using my whammy bar to do some crazy little. Very like old school, like 80s style kind of like metal too. You might hear people very Pantera-ish and Dimebag-ish, and which Sinister from Sevenfold definitely does lots of that influence. So, so that's the colors, and just seeing them on your actual group, and the capital letters versus the lowercase letters. So now you can see where you have groups and subgroups and how you can actually create them. Whenever you have, let me turn this off right quick. So like when you see, now I have one group of the rhythms. Now I've grabbed extra stuff outside of that group, and whenever you have the circle on, so it's getting more than what's in the group when there's a circle around it. So whole group of rhythms, you can see the rhythm just has a black dot down here. Then when I add one more section to it, now it's putting a circle around it because it has added another segment that's not in that group. So this is just lots of information that lets you tell what's connected to, what any track is connected to over here. So again, Open circle means you have part of the group selected. Black dot means you have the whole group selected, and a circle around either one of them means you have a circle around the black dot means you have the whole group selected plus something else outside of that group selected. So that is what you're looking at on that front. Now we're really going to look at using these groups in action and showing you how I can control them. So let's go ahead and I'm going to open up my rhythm group here. I'm going to actually go ahead and turn off my main guitar group, my big guitar group, so I can just control the rhythms. And I'm going to use my attributes instead of my globals, because globals, you almost don't want to you don't really want to have any of the plugins control, unless it's just bypass so you can turn them all off or something on globals. But if you're trying to control individual plugins, I recommend you going into attributes, unchecking globals, and now I'm controlling the rhythms group only with this. So I want them to control the volume, and I can just hold option, just like anything else in Pro Tools, I can hold option on this and it'll check all the way down. And so I want to be able to control the volumes and mutes, don't want them to control the pans with each other because I don't want to do that. But since these are operating the same, I want my controls on both of these to be completely controlled exactly the same. Automation, solos, record if I was doing that. So now that I have all that turned on, now my plugins are going to work together with each other that are in this group. So now I can go up here, look at these. I'm just going to put some new ones on here because I just want to make sure, like what you need to do if you're going to use groups together is you want to create a new plugin, copy that plugin over to the next, to the other track that's in the group. And now when I click on this, you see I'm controlling both the sections now because I turned my group on to where I am controlling the bypass. And then I also have it where it controls the plugin. So now if I open one plugin and let's say, cool, I'm putting these over here. I'm just going to do some drastic thing and now I'm doing these cut and, doing this or something, here's my moves. Now if I go click on the one to the right of this, it has the exact same moves done to it. So this allows you to work very quickly and process two different tracks at the exact same time in the same way, which is usually very good for when you're working with a left-right stereo scenario like this. You could also decide if you wanted to do it on, you wanted to control it on a bus, but this is something where like guitars in this scenario, I'm gonna control these rhythm guitars on their two sections right here because I want to dial them in individually. And usually if I'm stacking multiple guitars or multiple amps, I may EQ them just slightly different. Yeah, you can hold shift, you could hit shift click a bunch, you could open almost as many. John's saying you can hold shift and click to see both plugins, which right there, now you do see both plugins. You could actually click this multiple times and have a ton of different, you can open as many windows with shift click as you want. Now, no matter what though, anything you actually click, whatever you clicked originally when you do regular click, will go back to where you had the first regular click, just so you know what that is. So he's just saying that you can open additional windows from the click if you wanted to see both of them. So even if I was moving, you can probably see the other thing happen. It's a slight delay, but you can see I'm controlling both of them at the same time with my group. Most of the time I just know once I have the group setting right, I'm just looking at one and just dialing it in that way. And then I'll go over and just make sure the other setting looks like that when I'm done. But yeah, like John said, you can open up, with shift click, you can open up as many plugin windows you want at one time. So that allows me to control the plugins and actually using those. But then again, like I was saying, you can control the individual volumes of each there, and then we can control all our buttons. And then we can, if we do pan, I'll show you just so you can see what it does, but which on that one, they're not actually, the pan's not going with each other on that point right there. There they go, you have to start them in the same spot or it doesn't let me do that, which that's why for the most part, I don't really ever use pan in my groups because I'm usually not trying to send them the same way unless there is a reason that you are trying to send them the same way, and then that's when you would use it. But other than that, I usually avoid pan in there because I'm usually I'm usually doing the other thing, Option Command W. Is that saying close all windows? Let's see, Option Command W. Yep, that works. There it is, Option Command W. Nice quick key from John right there. I'm a big fan of the hotkeys, so I'll always push those. So I like anyone that anytime anyone's using hotkeys to help you get around quicker on what's going on in that section. Okay, so another thing too that is, we're going to talk about VCAs here in just a second. But another thing too, just in case, there's a lot of times where you're working with stuff and you want to do one little edit on something that's not especially if you were using drums and you wanted to do one little edit on because once you have a group on, you can see I have drums on there. Let's kind of just take a look at. It's going to grab the entire drum set, but if I wanted to just work on one thing without going through this whole thing, because even if I turn off drums, I have subgroups for all my drums. Let me go over here where you can see that. So second I turn drums off, and then I have kicks. Is I have all these little subgroups under there: kicks, snares, toms, overheads, rooms, and I have my main drum group that's going over the top of those. So instead of, if I want to go change one thing on a kick out or something, I don't have to go in and turn off multiple groups. The easiest way to deal with this is so you're not always turning your group, having to guess which group every group is. I use a lot of groups, so you may get up to where I have 20 plus groups in there. I already have almost 20 right here in this group with all the different stuff I have. But you can hold Shift Command G, and if you look at the groups section over here in the bottom left, everything grayed out. So now all my groups are off and I have quick control again. And then if I want all my groups to turn right back on and be in control, I can just Shift Command G and then they're all right back on. So that is deactivate all groups. And that's a really fast way for you to not have to go, if I wanted to control kick and turn off turn off the drums, and then I still see that there's a kick group there too that I need to go turn that off. So the easiest way is just, like I said, Shift Command G, and it turns the groups off, and then you have individual control where it's just one. Then I can turn the groups back on, and I click, and now I'm grabbing everything that's in that group. So that's a super quick shortcut to get you around very fast. Holding control ignores groups too. Interesting. It does scrub whenever I hold group on this. So. But I know that I think it's definitely easier for you to just turn the group off with that front and then just go through there. But you can certainly try that too. Oh, on mix window. Okay. What is it? Just oh, that just turns the whole thing off and on. I see now. Which I don't want to have some of these on. There we go. Cool. Okay. So Option grabs all of them or turns them all off and on, but this actually, without having to go click all those individual ones on, this keeps all your exact group settings intact of what's turned on and what's not turned on, and this is just deactivating them and letting them work as a group or not as a group. So that's a really quick way to go through it too. We talked about deactivate, and I talked about the difference between attributes and globals. And now also, I just wanted to show you, because we talked about plugins, doing that. You can also control sends from these. So if we were doing a send where this was going to some bus, let's just say it was going to delay, and I have delay on both these, on this rhythm group, since I have the sends set to control 2, anything I do on my sends is going to be the same as well, which is exactly what I want. And this is actually really nifty if you're doing tracking. I usually create a tracking group. Whenever y'all are doing tracking, I'll actually make anytime doing tracking, I'll usually take everything that's in the session that's tracking and just create a group that's called tracking, and then I can where it's just at least controlling these 4 things: record and input, solo, and usually where I can at least just turn record and input off and on for everything if I need to, and then that makes that real simple. So you can just see that anytime I have any of these checks checked in here, you need to know what's going on. So sends obviously is controlling the mute and the pan and the levels of those individual tracks. So hopefully everyone's understanding those, since I'm not seeing any questions about the mix window group. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use a VCA with these sections. So let's say I have these groups going on, and I'm going to bring in a VCA. So like I said, a VCA is literally a track I'll bring it in right here. And let's say I'm going to just go ahead and create a new group. in a new track with Shift Command N, and I'm going to create a VCA. And there's no mono or stereo. There's going to be no records. It's just going to be a VCA. So you can label these later if you want, but now you see like it has a slot that says no group. So we can actually go straight on here and like select a group from here. Like if I wanted it to be all the guitars, we can do it that way. And now, instead of going in and let's say you were trying to do automation and you wanted to, instead of drawing which I don't, like instead of drawing unless I have one little thing, like I'd rather not draw automation on 4 different guitars at one time and instead just draw one line. So we can use the VCA here, which now controls these faders, you know, exactly where they were. And I'm just controlling all of them from one individual fader, which is super easy for automation. So now, you know, like I could control my volumes down here and just put like I could put the automation right here instead, and it's actually going to move all of them. So you see how it just moves the whole group. So it's really simple whenever you're using VCA automation for multiple groups. So now, besides selecting it from this section here, you can just select no group if you don't want it attached. You can actually go to the actual group you want it to control as well. So if we went to guitars here, you can go into modify, and you can actually see you can select the VCA from here as well. Select VCA 1, and now it'll connect and show you the color and the name of the group right there that VCA is controlling. So that is that's really the only time you'd use VCAs, but they're great for controlling groups as one. So that is how you can connect and use those. Now we're going to shift more into the groups. Into the clips. If y'all have any more questions about groups, then also another thing. Well, actually, I'm going to go over the groups one more second thing and just kind of look at what I normally do with groups. But if you notice too over here, the second you have a VCA connected, it'll show you it in the groups window. The groups window shows you all the information you need. No group, that VCA will disappear. Connected to a group, now you automatically know that that group has a VCA attached to it. So use this information to help you. Lastly, over here on the left, every group starts with all, and this just, if this is on, you see it literally grabs every single track in the session. So just keep that in mind there. Now I just kind of want to look at what I normally do with groups. I'm going to make this a little bit thinner so we can see a little more tracks. By the way, you guys can make it in thin view by just doing Option Command M if you need to condense your session to make it easier to see more lines that are there. So usually what I like to do is I like to make a whole drum group that controls all my drums. Then I like to do subgroups of my drums, kicks, snares, toms, overheads, rooms, cymbals if you decide you want to do that. It just makes it where I can easily do any movements together if I need to with these groups. I just like them to be there. I have a bass group, and then I usually just go by instrument groups from there. I got a flute group, I got a pad group, I got this. These are 2 different kinds of synths that are happening here, so I have them having their own groups over here because they're 2 pretty different synths. And I'm just calling them what they are. Like one's a screen synth and one's this, like, we just called it space dust when we made the sound because we just thought that's what it sounded like. But and then I have a strings group, and then I have a guitar group over here that I also have a subgroup of rhythms underneath. So usually I'm just trying to break it up by instrument group, and then if there's subgroups of those instruments, I'll create those underneath it as well. So that's just really looking at what I'm doing with my groups and how I'm setting those up. Okay, now we're going to talk about clips. So transitioning over to that area for the rest of the session. If you do have another question on groups, feel free to type it in and I'm glad to answer it. But so a clip is, what is a clip? A clip is, a clip is actually a section that holds audio or MIDI or something in your DAW, in your session. So each of these individual sections is a clip. So technically in this track right now, I have 3 separate clips because this is a clip. And I'm going to turn this whole big group off. We'll deal with that in a second. So this is a clip. This is a clip, you know, like, so these are individual clips. You can see it's actually grabbing the automation too. So that's a clip is just, you know, obviously something you have recorded from that session. Now you can see the list of clips from the clips bin over here that those of you who have had me talk to you about this, this is where every single recording that you've done, every single take is stored from that session. So you can see every single take you did from anything. So like even though we did like 20 takes on some of these things, like you can see every single one of them, did 10 on some. It all just depends what you're looking at, but you can see every single clip that you have in your entire session here. Really, you don't need to be digging around in here unless you had something, a bad issue happen and you actually lost like you can't find a clip or a clip says it's missing, you may have to go into the clips bin and find it. That would really be the only time that you would really have to go into here. But most of the time, you can just open that with this little arrow in the edit window, but I'm gonna hide it because again, you don't need to see it unless something bad happens and you're trying to go find a clip that you don't know where it is. So that's that's that front. So now we're really gonna dive into everything we can do with a clip so you can control your session. So let's take a look at this section over here. I'm just gonna push that to the grid so it's just sitting where it needs to be. And we're gonna look at all the different functions we can do. So starting with this, just the simple stuff is knowing how to see our zooms and our different heights. So you can actually control clip, the audio gain of how thick the zoom is on a clip by just pressing these buttons over here. And that'll allow you to see those. But now if you get here and you're like, man, but there is also a shortcut to do this. There's hotkeys that control this, and it is Option, Command, and our brackets, the ones that are next to P. So I can go left and right and do this straight from my keyboard without having to touch any of that. Now let's say like that's full zoom, and this is fully zoomed out. If you get in this part, which I know I used to be in this part, and it's like, man, I'm not exactly sure where the actual normal zoom point is on this, you can hold Control, Option, and Command and press the left bracket, and then it puts them all back at the standard zoom point for where my clips were, so I know what I'm like exactly where they were sitting at. So again, that hotkey is Option, Command, and the brackets, and you can get back to standard with Option, Command, and the left bracket. So that is zooming in on the actual clips in there. Like if you, again, in session, y'all probably know this, but you can zoom in with R and T to zoom in this way into your clip. You can also make the clip wider by grabbing the track by itself and just dragging it down bigger. There's also a hotkey for this where we can press Control and use our arrow keys to go up and down. So if I hold Control and go up, I can zoom in to that, make that wider, or I can press down and make it really, really small. So you can see I'm holding Control and up and down arrow to control that. This is normally kind of the default where you can see everything there, because once it gets past that, it gets a little bigger. Once you go one more smaller, then it starts hiding features that are in there. So that's the quick way to be able to see height and to be able to zoom in is R and T. Now let's say you have a clip and you just want to see that clip and you just want to work in that clip and work on it in full screen. As long as you have the A to Z on in your edit window, you can just press the E button you can just press E on your keyboard and it'll zoom in. I don't know why. Sometimes it does that and it really annoys me when it does that. So let me let me grab this here. So when I grab this, if I press E, now it's just zooming in I think it was trying to read where I had another section grabbed, even though I was there. So you can press E on any clip that you grab onto, and then it'll just make it full screen where we can easily work with it in a zoomed in fashion if we needed to grab something or be very exact. Also, if you accidentally just press E on your keyboard because R and T are really next to each other and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm zoomed in super far, what happened? You can just press E again and it'll go right back to standard zoom of what you're looking at. So I'll do that when I'm really trying to get in and really do a bunch of work of zooming in. Now, the other thing that I was talking about, just so you know, like if you wanted to adjust your entire session here, like I showed you the control up and down for the individual track that you have shown. Now, if you wanted to do this for the whole session, you can do Control and Option and press up and down. Oh, not Control and Option, ugh. Control and Command, my bad. Oops. There we go. Yeah, it's freaking out on me. So you can hold Control and Option and do up and down with that, and that controls how much we're zooming. You can make the whole session really big or really small and get it all to standard size there. So let me get back to where I was down here. I'm going to make this pan small again because I don't want to see the pan huge. Okay, and then also another thing, if you're ever zoomed in really far too on this front, you can do Option A and it'll always show you your whole session, like the whole session length. So like I am zoomed in, I can press Command Option A and then it shows you the whole session length that you have in your DAW, in Pro Tools at least. Now from there, like that was just showing zoom and how you can look at this stuff a little better. We're going to zoom in a little bit more on this section. So now we're going to talk about actually controlling, and we talked about looking at the zoom of just the actual transients going on, or the clips or the audio files that are in here. Now we're going to talk about actually controlling the clip gain in there. Now the clip gain is going to change the loudness or strength of what you're actually listening to. So like if we were doing this little section, down here, this is our gain control. We're at standard gain at 0. So like if I pull this down, it's going to be very low. And we can push this up really high. You can treat it just like a fader, an option click, and it'll put it right back to standard as well. But this is where we can control how, if we need to do any, any adjustments to our track. Like if I needed to make some certain other spot a little bit smaller or bigger, we can do that. And so I could make a break here and literally make another section smaller if I really needed to do that. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this quick too, because you can fine tune with this little fader over here and hold Command to make it as fine tuned as you want. If you hold and drag it, you see it opens this little actual fader to the left of it. There's a hotkey for this though too. If you have a clip grabbed, that I can just do Control and Shift and use my up and down arrows, and it actually it moves my clip gains in increments of ½ dB, which this is really fast to be able to work with how you're controlling the dBs of any section if you need to readjust them. So that's a really fast way to go around and do that. Is Control and Shift up and down arrow. So Control Shift up and down arrow controls your actual clip gain, and then just Control up and down by itself just controls the zoom in of the clip. So that is doing our gain by hand. Now there's also one other way I want to show y'all that we can do this. I just want to make sure I was covering everything because I know it's here. You can actually right click. You can go to View as well, because there's a clip section here where you can add different things. We'll look at the View section here in a moment. But you can actually right click on a clip and you can go to Clip Gain, and there is a bottom down here where there's a choice where you can select Show Line. And when you click Show Line, now it puts an actual clip gain line on that clip. So we have this clip line where I can just control the clip gain from a line very simply. So that's also another option you can do. And I'm going to put this back at 0, and I'm going to take the line off. But just so you know, you can turn the line. You can put a clip gain line there to actually show how that clip gain is moving. So that is showing all the ways we can control control the gain, but either by hand or by hotkeys, which I love hotkeys, so I use hotkeys at every scenario I can possibly use them at. So next, the other thing would be doing fades. So those of you who just standard fade pops up right when you're holding at the edge. You can move it yourself. They're on both ends, or if you have a cut somewhere, then you have an option to crossfade between two sections. So fades are always included in clips. You can actually control, if you grab a clip, like if I have a clip like this and I press Command F, it opens up my batch fades menu where we can actually control what my fade looks like. You can decide if it's curved or equal power or equal gain. So you can see it changes the shape. You can decide how much your length is. 20 milliseconds is usually good for a lot of stuff, and I just press OK. Now it puts fades on the end of both of my clips. So 20 milliseconds is very, very tiny. If you want it big, you can do another one. I just wanted y'all to see that, just so you can see that you can do fades very quickly with batch fade with Command F. So now Besides fades, there's another thing I want to show you just you can do in clips. It's actually a pretty cool little trick you can do. I think I've talked with some of y'all before, but it's called strip silence, and you can do Command U, and it opens up this window that's called strip silence. And if you didn't want any of the like anything that's happening on these, like you see these little white lines, it's going to cut anything that's below this threshold. So I can change my threshold to be very high and cut everything, or I can make it a little lower and push it where it's only grabbing everything here. So let's say I decide to do this like right there, so I'm not cutting anything off. I can pick, now if I press strip, actually I want to separate first, and then you press strip, and then it pulls away everything that doesn't have any information in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it back. I just wanted y'all to know that this option is here, and you can get there from Command U, and it lets you go into strip silence to, instead of having to manually cut by hand, you can set up that way and do cleanup inside your clips if you want to from strip silence. And again, that's Command U. The other thing, now we'll go look at the view up here just so you can understand everything you can see in a clips window. So I always like seeing the name and all of these parts here. You can, channel name actually hadn't shown anything up when I do that. Now rating is the thing we kind of talked about with the comping playlists. You can turn rating on here and it shows ratings underneath clips. And when you do that, now you can, if you're doing different takes, you can go down here and select a rating and choose, okay, cool, this was a 2 rating. Oh, this one was great, so this one's 5 stars, usually I would only do it on ones that are good takes, just so I know that, cool, this is a 5-star take, this is a 5-star take, and then I'm immediately eliminating them pretty quickly. So you can do rating. If you're, this thing that says overlap shadows or transparency, that's if you were using loop mode record and you weren't having them go to different playlists. It'll stack them behind each other and you can bring different clips forward. But having transparent, I don't have it set up that way, so that doesn't even, there's nothing for me to see underneath it. But you can also grab the clip gain line here, and this is where I always like having the clip name too. Like some people don't like having the name. I always want to see the name so I can know so I kind of know what the clip came from. So that's just all in this view section from the clip right here, where you can turn, where you have all the control of different, where you have different options to see all that information. Like even down here, we should be able to see, like if I have original timestamp, it puts exactly where that timestamp was, 33:1, 61:3. So cool, it's telling me exactly where the original timestamp was, even if you wanted to see that information, which is pretty cool. But usually I select no time because I don't need to see that for the most part. So now that we've talked about view, we've talked about how to do that part in clips. The last thing I kind of want to show you is if you are trying to group multiple clips together, like let's say that I needed to move this clip around for some reason. So I have, like or I'm trying to grab this section by itself and move these a certain way. You can, Command G makes regular groups. If we do Option Command G, it makes a clip group. So now, like I can move this whole clip group together. Now, if I want to get rid of that group, I just do Option Command U and it ungroups them and they're back from the group. But this is something where you can actually group. And I don't ever want to really, me personally, I don't like leaving the clips in a clip group. It's more I'm using it to do some type of movement of multiple things that are chopped up with each other together. And then I'll usually ungroup after I get done doing whatever I'm doing with the group, then I'll ungroup them, because like if I do a cut in the group or do a change thing in the group and then I get rid of the group, whatever I did when it was in the group setting, like, and I'm saying like crossfades or cuts, it won't be there when you go back to the normal, to your ungrouped setting. So I normally like to go back to my regular group after I have done that. And then that way I have, then I have it back to where my clips normally were. And I know where all my crossfades and all of that kind of stuff is. So that is the overview of, of what we can do with clips and how to use it for fades and use gains and how to zoom in on it and how to change track heights and how to use those a little bit different. Also, one other thing you can do with clips, just while I was thinking about it that I actually didn't even write down to show y'all, is you can easily duplicate clips by just doing Command D and it'll just put it right after it. I'm going to get rid of those. You can also drag and create one by, if you hold Option down on a clip and then click it, you can drag and that'll make another duplicate as well. So that's another way that you can duplicate clips through those, is Command D and by Option clicking them. So I'm sure you could probably duplicate by right clicking, I would assume too. Nope, doesn't look like I can duplicate from there, which is interesting. So the easiest, so the way to duplicate, I mean, I've never done it through right click. I was just figured they might have had a manual way to do it, but Command D and then Option drag will let you do both of those. So that is the overview on groups and clips. And so use groups to help you organize your session, control instrument groups, control tracks that are working together with each other, use it for mixing, use it for sends, use it for any of that kind of stuff. If you want to create a VCA, you can do that to control and automate an individual group. So like I said, this is typically what a session looks like for me with a group. I usually have tons of groups controlling everything. So anytime I have control of an entire section of my session. And then clips, this just lets you really be able to super control anything you need to do in your session. There's lots of times where I got to come in and do clip gains to even something out, or or something wasn't loud enough to make it louder on purpose from there. So this is absolutely, this will help you get through those. So I hope this lesson of going through groups and clips helps your session navigation and your session control and organization be much better. And hopefully you picked up a little tools that you can use, and as you go through using Pro Tools. And those of you who have seen some of this from me, hopefully this is a refresh on anything that you forgot. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the evening and week and weekend, and we will catch you next time. Later.
Thanks everybody for watching. If you found this content useful, please like this video. It will tell YouTube to show it to others. If you are enrolled, please go to the Seminars tab on the my.trcoa website and take the quiz over tonight's lesson. And if you need to book one-on-one time with an instructor, text 512-231-0344. If you aren't enrolled, go to trcoa.edu to find out more information about what we do. Also, please post in the chat subjects you'd like to see for our upcoming live streams. And as always, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye, everybody.